Well, we have one success story of a LibreText user for coming up next, and that is going to be Anna Mills, and she's going to share about her successes with LibreText. So take it away, Anna.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to walk through some highlights from my textbook, How Arguments Work, which I started in 2019. So, and I've been working with LibreText all along. This is a project that was funded by the Academic Senate for the California Community College's OER initiative. And so we created the textbook, and then we went back with subsequent grant funding to create ancillary resources and to update it and add to it. So I worked with a group of 14 instructors from around California on that. And just sort of, you know, these are the rewards that are coming now that it's been 3 years. So the positive feedback we've had is just that our academic peer reviewers, 6 of them, had all said, yes, I would adopt this textbook. So that meant a lot to me. We're starting to get reviews on various OER review websites like Merlot, OER Commons, and the Open Textbook Library, and those have all been very positive. Reviews from faculty. Delmar has been very helpful with the analytics. So we've been able to see how many page views the book has gotten. I think we're around 250,000 so far. It's also up on Canvas Commons, so we can see who's downloading the whole book and course from there. And those are instructors who are bringing that in, 143 at the moment. And then also we've been able to track with the analytics from LibreText which learning management systems are drawing on the textbook in significant numbers. So I've been able to track using that. You know, people don't always report through adoption forms that they're using a textbook, but if we see that, you know, 40 users from Camden County College's learning management system are drawing on the same page around the same time, then we see, okay, this instructor has assigned it. So it's been nice to see that there's a broad adoption. I think we're at 32 colleges now. And oh, awesome. Thank you, Greta, for, yeah, that Los Angeles City College is remixing with that.
Yeah, Delmar and Josh put it in the chat at office hours, which was very helpful. I love your book. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's great to hear. And then, yeah, my next slide was a remixing. So it's nice with the LibreText search that I'm able to see which courses have remixed from the book. So it's just kind of a sample. So I was able to track down then the instructor from Harrisburg Area Community College who had drawn on it a lot and updated it. And so I can start creating this list of folks who are using and remixing the book so that I can reach out to them as well as I make updates or as I seek feedback. I think the analytics, I think LibreText is about to come out with a new sort of more accessible, user-friendly way to access the analytics for each book. So I've been digging around in the Google Analytics system, and I think that's about to change and become more user-friendly. So I'll just say that. I think that's coming soon kind of thing. Yeah, just a quick look at table of contents. It grew and grew as we adapted it to 2 different course outlines. And so the typical structure for a chapter is that I have these content pages with the page summaries. I think it's a really nice feature that students can preview the whole chapter in that way. So I prioritized adding in those page summaries on the last grant. And then I sort of have resources such as sample essays and kind of appendix material at the end of each chapter. I've really focused on inclusion, diversity in terms of the images we've chosen. And one feature for multiple learning styles is that we added audio versions of each page using the audio player that LibreText helped me see how to add that element. So I think I can demonstrate. So these are auto-generated using natural reader software, but the user can just click play at the top of any page and they're going to hear this robo
Section
voice.
4.2. Check if the meaning is clear.
So it's you know, it's not an awful robo voice, right? Okay. And I'm happy to answer questions if people are also working on audio versions and you know, seeing better ways to do that, or have questions about how I did that. So I also have started to embed interactive features using H5P, and that is kind of in beta, but it's so fun to play with, and it is so many possibilities. So one thing I built was a document generator where it would prompt students based on material in the chapter to answer questions about a specific argument they were going to write about in order to come up with an original response to it. And so let's see. So that's one. I didn't need to do that. And then another is more of a traditional multiple choice question that it's just embedded in the page. And I haven't yet set this up with Adapt, but that is my next step. So let's see. Not sure why it keeps doing that. Okay, we also have a really pretty extensive teacher's guide with slides that go with the chapters. We have a lot that's about alignment with course outlines. So both statewide course outlines, we've sort of made the case for how the textbook covers each item. We've also have suggested sequences of assignments to go with the book. And then we have information about how to work with an LMS and use the resources that we built in Canvas. And we're in the process of bringing those over into Adapt as well. And we have a lot of ways in which I've invited feedback. And I've had instructors join our hypothesis group and just, you know, start adding feedback in the margins of the text, which is really cool. So the Canvas, associated Canvas resources are dynamic. So those are pulling from the updated LibreText version. And people can come across the book through Canvas Commons, through the course shell that's posted there, which again, dynamically draws from LibreText. And so it gives a preview of the LibreText resources on Canvas Commons. So then the next step will be, now that Adapt can import QTI files, it can import quizzes from the LMS, from the standard format. I'm going to bring in that whole suite of, I think we have like 14 quizzes that I'm going to bring into Adapt. And let's see, I had a couple more things I wanted to show. So this is just a sample page. Let's see. It's going to show, oh yeah, that's the one with the exercise in it. Another feature that I really appreciate, you know, I've gotten some good feedback that the students appreciate the way the textbook pages are organized in a hierarchical way that's logical, so that it's easy for them to preview the section And I think LibreText really facilitated that because being able to use this table of contents for the page and work with multiple levels of headers is something that actually I could be wrong, but when I looked at Pressbooks, it didn't seem like they could do nested hierarchies like that. So I really love that in LibreText, I can have not just the headings, but I can have as many levels of hierarchy as I want for the page to fit the logic of the page. So here's a page where I've used that to some extent. So in this section, I wanted to break down my phrases into subcategories. And so I just used headings to do that. And it shows up in the table of contents. And then I have, the constant format of having the practice exercises at the end. I also just wanted to show with the Canvas integration, what that looks like within that Canvas learning management system. So it was nice that the textbook elements could be integrated into the course directly there in the modules so that students didn't know they were going to another platform. So I love that LibreText is moving toward offering that functionality through Adapt so that ultimately students, it reduces cognitive load if they're on one platform and they're reading the textbook and trying things out and their grades are there as well and the instructor sees what they're doing. So it's all happening together, the reading and the trying it out. So this is what that looks like in Canvas. And then the LibreText page loads dynamically into the Canvas page. And I think Delmar already showed this is what the book looks like in the LibreText Commons, and where you can see the licensing breakdown. A lot of original pages. Most of the textbook is original, but maybe 30% is remixed from a whole bunch of different sources that have some different licenses. And this is the Libre Studio where I'm building more exercises, which is endlessly fun. And I think that's all that I have prepared, but I would love to know what kinds of things people want to hear about working on a project long-term here, or what anything else you'd like me to show from the textbook, questions that came up as we worked on it. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Frank, in the chat. So the Academic Senate grants, they provided me some support to look for collaborators at other colleges. So they did send out a listserv message inviting people to contact me. And, but I also just developed my own list of instructors in California who were interested in OER. I actually went on to some other sites and just kind of found those people's emails and just reached out with a general message of invitation and asked people to explain, I sort of made a little mini informal application process. And so and I just tracked that with a spreadsheet. So I kind of developed my own list of contacts. And now we have an English OER listserv that I started also through ASCCC OERI. So I think we're starting to see discipline OER listservs, and that's another way to find collaborators. Also, the CCC OER listserv often has posts, look for that. Yeah, my module in Canvas. Yeah, so the question of, how did the topic get identified? So in order to get the grant, I had to sort of do my own research as to the need and make a case that there was a gap in the existing OER. So I did I did do that by surveying the field and using the resources that the funder ASCCC provided. They host sort of discipline resource lists that are matched to the California course outlines. So that was a big help in identifying which OER matched to which courses and where there was a need in order to make my case. So I'm hoping that answers, I don't know if that answers your question, David. So as far as coordinating with other faculty, I started to use project management software when I had a bigger team. And I'm just starting to work with the LibreText, and I don't know if Delmar wants to comment on this, but there's now sort of project management software within the LibreText system, so that we can sort of figure out who's working on a particular page, and we can send messages that are tied to that particular task, and sort of get notifications on tasks and deadlines. So that was really helpful to me to set up that collaboration. We did a bunch of Zooms, we did a lot of peer review of each other's work, and it was really rewarding to do that. Let's see, can I show my module in Canvas so I can see how it's integrated?
You
Sure.
had shared your screen, and if you can just maybe click through like the module real quick, just so I can see how it looks once it's integrated.
Yeah.
And then if you also want to maybe pontificate, I think you've done some stuff maybe with artificial intelligence and virtual reality. So if you can pontificate, because
yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, we're doing some stuff with MetaCity. And so like, you know, if I can know what's already kind of out there and you've already done.
Oh, well, we should chat about that for sure. I would love to hear about that. I haven't done as much with virtual reality as I've been looking at AI text generators and how those sort of might throw a wrench into writing pedagogy if students are using them to generate their essays. And then also how we might use them in the teaching of writing. So that's what I've been tweeting about a whole bunch. But yeah, we should chat about that. I haven't connected that to the textbook yet. That's something I want to add is, you know, a page on that. And I think that'll be a unique contribution. I don't think that's in any writing OER text yet, sort of. But just as far as, I think Sheila asked for clicking through in Canvas, what that looks like. So here's one page, and then if I click on links within that, I can get out and onto the LibreText platform, but I can also just follow the structure of the module and just click next, right, to go to the next item. And often that'll be like an associated quiz when they're at the end of the chapter.
Excuse me, so right now you're looking at the whole, what's on LibreText has been put into Canvas, is that right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so the student feels like they're still in Canvas, but this is pulling dynamically from the LibreText page. So if I've just edited that, it'll still show up dynamically in Canvas with the newest version. And they can still listen to the audio version there from within Canvas, etc.
And do you find your students are staying in Canvas, or they're going to LibreText, or it's a bit of both?
You know, I'm not sure. I don't have a way to track that. I would imagine that they're staying in Canvas. The thing that I have done that Bob talked about using hypothesis groups. I've been doing social annotation, so I've moved to assigning all of these things through social annotation. And I've done that in Canvas. So I imagine that will appear in LibreText eventually in Adapt, something like that. But for the moment, I can only do that with my institution in Canvas. And then So I've been putting PDFs of the LibreText chapters into the social annotation app, which is Perusal, and then assigning students to annotate the chapter. That gets automatically graded, and those grades go into my Canvas gradebook. And that's been an amazing way to get student feedback on the textbook. And that's leading to revisions as well. And that's also happening sort of from Canvas, if that makes sense. Let's see. The audio version is not automatically added by LibreText, but there is a template that I can use. I had to generate the MP3 files. So the audio files I did have to generate using other software, or you could record yourself reading it. So that's not automated, but there are ways to do it for free, and it's pretty quick. I had a student assistant who, when it was a lot of different pages we needed to do, she went through and helped with generating those audio files. How are the essays?
Oh yeah, go ahead. That was actually my question.
Okay.
Greta was the other one.
Yeah, I don't know if I answered that, Greta, as far as how it's integrated in Canvas.
Yeah, I just wanted to see an example because we're in the baby stages of LibreText. So I just wanted to, I'm getting an idea of like possibilities.
I appreciate it's very easy. I could do it through importing from Canvas Commons. LibreText makes it easy to download the LMS file that you then import into your LMS course. And it's also, you can just add it manually from within the Canvas course using the LibreText link. So there are a lot of different ways to add it in, and it's not a big deal to do that integration. Yeah.
So the question that you started to ask, that I asked, answer that I asked is about the essays and how they're licensed.
Okay. The sample essays? Yeah. So in some cases, I had students fill out a form. Students who were willing to share their essays gave permission to license it CC by NC. And so I'll show you the format of those. In other cases, so if I was taking it from another OER, like I have one sample essay from The Conversation, which has an ND license, and I may phase that out. But for the most part, they are open licensed, and I was even able to edit them and adapt them, which was nice because I wanted to be able to annotate them and show concepts from the chapter in the vocabulary of the chapter. So it was helpful to be able to edit them also to fit the way I'd constructed the sample essay assignments that are posted in the LMS to fit with the chapter. So like, for example, here, we actually put it up in PDF with margin notes, but that's not an accessible format. So we did an alternate format as well. And it's really nice to have both. One is the PDF here. Looks great, but it's taking a while to load. The other one is just a LibreText page with the annotations in parentheses in the course of the sample essay. Sorry, this is taking too long. But yeah, I have worked with, posting links to, say, Google Doc templates. And I've used Google Draw to create some argument maps that then I put in as graphics into the pages, and I created text descriptions of those for accessibility purposes. And yeah, so here you see the PDF looks nice, would be great for printing, but the screen reader is not going to go from these annotations in any smooth way that's going to be in the right order. But it does show at the end of that, I believe it does have the license. Oh dear. Thought it had the license at the bottom of the page. It has the license on the previous page that links to this, but really the PDF should have the license as well. So that's going to go on my to-do list. But yeah, and certainly the accessibility, I had a lot of support from the funder to sort of identify accessibility problems and get the accessibility review and do those last minute fixes. So that was a big thing that I learned in the process of, was just to block out more time for that in planning. The annotations were mine. So, or in some cases, another instructor. And then I went in and edited them. I found it helpful to have, I really stuck with the sort of having a lead person model. I wanted to keep a cohesive vision for the book. So even though I did work with many collaborators and I really wanted feedback and I had other writers creating new pages, I had a pretty strong editorial role there. So I would go in and essentially adapt people's works to have that cohesion for the book as a whole. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so here, here's the accessible version. So instead of having the annotations in the margins, we did it multiple ways with color, with parentheses, with the word note, offsetting those so that a screen reader would make that clear for a blind person. And it's actually really nice to have it in this format as well, just for clicking through and staying within the format of the LibreText pages. Sometimes that's just easier for anyone. And then we have the audio version as well. So having to do this, I think, led to improvements that are good for many users, not just those who are using screen readers. Yeah. So I don't know if there are any other comments or questions.
You've been posting a lot of stuff on AI, presuming the future, and I don't want to redirect the conversation to a long discussion of AI, but you have some vision that you're either have or you're drafting in terms of where AI fits in composition, which would at some point be connected with the resources you've created here. Are you willing to share that vision?
Sure, yeah. So I started experimenting using some of the material in the textbook to see, using the essay assignments and using the sample essays. Could a text generator, write some plausible paragraphs for these assignments I've created? Could it do the kinds of things that the textbook is trying to teach? It can do quite a bit. I was working with OpenAI's GPT-3, and I'm starting to have a list of sample essays that it's generated. I was really impressed at one point because I put in one of the sample essays I wrote for this book and asked it to do a critical assessment, and it did generate a sentence that pointed me to a little inconsistency in the argument that I had not noticed and my peer reviewers had not noticed. And so that gave me a bit of a shiver. However, I think that, let's see. So I think that there are definitely concerns about plagiarism that I think English teachers and anyone who assigns writing will need to grapple with. And whether it is plagiarism when students are using an AI text generator to help them, there's a whole range of ways in which that could be used, from trying to generate a whole essay. That's probably not going to be super successful. You might, with some kinds of assignments, you might get a C essay. In most cases, you need to prompt it to do a couple paragraphs at a time and do a little bit of the writing and do a little bit of revising. But so that's one issue. But another issue is sort of, if you play around with the GPT-3, it can sort of be an all-purpose, it attempts to be an all-purpose tutor. So you, even without directing it to a textbook chapter, one could imagine that this will be used as a way to have sort of dynamic student, like it could create discussion questions based on a chapter. So that's another thing that I tried out, and it created some good discussion questions. And it could, students could ask it questions about the content, and it's not reliable. And it does have a certain amount of bias baked in based on the data that it was trained on. So there are definitely concerns about trying to experiment with those pedagogical applications. And there's also a lot of potential. You can create apps that will fine tune the AI based on your own data set. So I can imagine that with this incredible textbook database, there'd be a lot of potential for LibreText to build on that to create AI applications. Let's see, there's so many issues. I don't know what you want me to focus on.
I had no, I'm still trying to figure out this around. I was in a workshop a few months ago in Washington, and there's an individual in Georgia Tech that built a system called Ask Jill, or I think that was the term for it, that was sort of similar to Watson and IBM, that would be able to digest our entire repertoire of content, which is 3 billion characters, and then build a chatbot. So students can come in and ask questions and get some feedback off of there. Who knows about the quality of that right now, but because there's so much repetition and so 10 different ways in which you say the same thing, it might be well suited in order to be able to build these things out. And I'm interested in playing around with it. My other issue ultimately is, we're open source, open educational resource based, and everything I've seen so far, with the exception of stuff that's experimental and academia, is not free or open source. Unless there's something I don't know about, I'm a little concerned about its utility within the infrastructure and the philosophy that we are pursuing.
There are folks who are trying to build like the open source version. I think it's called GPTJ. There's a company called Hugging Face that sort of puts out these free models that are often sort of the free version of what the big corporations did. The one I've experimented with is not comparable as far as the quality yet. So yeah, I mean, that's a big concern of mine, and I've been reading about the critiques of the current model. They don't publicize what data it's been trained on. The strange thing is that though that not that much pre-training is required anymore. So, if I want to just go in and experiment on OpenAI and ask it about geothermal energy, it's going to give pretty credible, pretty decent answers, even if I don't feed it a textbook on geothermal energy. And that's based on, the pre-training that it's done on basically all of Reddit and Wikipedia and the internet, and, over 1 billion documents. But that's training that ended in 2019. So it's not completely updated. But I think that, so I think that question of using the most powerful models would be problematic from an open source perspective, yes. But there are folks who are working on it in a more open way. And the question is just whether they can reach the kind of scale that's needed to have that the quality level, because it's very expensive.
Okay, well, fingers crossed. Sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I would love to see, even if it's imperfect, I think we'll have to have like a critical literacy around this that we teach our students, where we teach them to see the outputs of an AI as sort of like statistically driven guesses, that then they have to go in and use their critical thinking to say, is that actually a good discussion question? Or does that actually make sense? Because these AIs don't have any connection to, essentially, to truth or to understanding, as far as I can tell. They're just basing this on statistics from the text that they've digested. So yeah, it's good. It's going to be pretty fascinating. Yeah, I don't want to take too much time, but I could, yeah, hear other people's perspectives and talk about that all day. If anybody wants to connect on Twitter, I'm putting my handle in. I was going to just add that kind of next steps for my project. I'm looking for more student feedback. So I'm going to have an annotation contest. So I'm going to try to track down, where are the teachers and the classes that are using the textbook, and invite them to participate, to submit annotations and possible additions to the textbook as editorial contributions. And then I'm going to kind of give recognition for those contributions. So this is a model that I'm trying out, and hoping to get more kind of an open pedagogy project going with that. So that then I would go through and vet the student feedback and contributions, but ultimately there would be some additions to the textbook that would come out of that.
Well, that's interesting. So I don't know if you noticed it, but certainly on the comments for your book and all of the books that are there, there's a review, peer review box. So you can build your own rubric. I know it's not the same as what you're saying at a specific page level, but you can build a rubric up and then email people the review link and say, okay, here's a review link. It's at the very top.
Okay.
Or not the very top, is right below your icon, your thumbnail. Go down. Okay, so we haven't set up a peer review system, but if we go in the Commons Conductor, we can build a review rubric, whether it's Open Georgia or Merlot is actually particularly good. BC Campus's Open Textbook Network is, I think, way too, it's not terribly useful from my perspective. And you can build a rubric off of however you want, and then you can basically then request people in order to process that, and you can get it. And the intent of it is to build a curatable repository reviews, because reviews are only, when a review says to change something and you change something, then the review loses its use. And I have a problem with that. Like, for example, the Open Textbook Library has these reviews that are 7, 8 years old on content that's changed radically. And keeping them around does a disservice to the authors that have created the book and has been updating them. And it's just really lazy. So we wanted to make a system that was able to be curated, and the authors can actually respond and have a conversation around the responses. It's not just basically throw it all into a pile and then let anyone sort through it and try to come to any conclusion they want, whether it's based on current reality or not. So if you're interested in that, let me know. We can go into making that up.
I would love that. Yeah.
And Delmar, that could be extremely useful in the development stage when authors feel that they're finished.
That's exactly. So if you go to the Commons and Conductor page, and assuming that Amber doesn't yell at me for stepping.
Should I stop share so you can?
I think I grabbed it already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, At least I'm pretty sure I did. You can come in, for example, this Spanish healthcare, you can establish the peer review process or peer review that you want to do. So you can say, okay, I want to use it based off of, you know, a LibreText version or Affordable Learning Solutions or so. And you can come in and modify it however you want. And then you can give the link out. And just like you said, this is part of the 3 steps of review process for any document. So this technology, Commons and Conductor, is designed explicitly for people that are in your shoes, Sheila, and also in my shoes. You just have too many projects of teams working together. So you have these teams that you can construct. They work together, they communicate, they build templates. You can then come in and evaluate them, build timelines and you know, Gantt views or calendars and things like that in order to be able to manage a large number of people who are coming in. And we have several hundreds of these projects, whether they're student harvesting projects or external projects that we supplement. And this is the only way that we've been able to organize it, because anything else we've tried has just kind of been poorly designed off of that. And that includes the ability in order to introduce an accessibility matrix. So you can come in and evaluate a whole bunch of these criteria and keep them connected to it. It's the most sophisticated accessibility matrix that's out there, instead of just like 5 check marks that you say, okay, it's done this, it's done this. This one, you can really do it and use bots in order to be able to do it. Anyone can have access to this. You guys all have accounts on them. In fact, this is what I recommend starting a project with in here, because we like to communicate with people via this information, this infrastructure, not via emails. Because this provides a mechanism for us to have a dialogue, and I can come in and I can see what's the state of communication on different things and keep it compartmentalized, and just basically, okay, this is what's going on, or anyone on my team can come in and say, oh, I could find out what's going on in this project really quickly and answer the question, instead of kind of like, okay, digging out who got this email here, who's doing this, what's the communication off of there. This is great. And it's not even my idea. It's a student that came up to me and said, you need this, and made it for me and said, here it is. And I was like, okay, we need to update it a bit, but it is really pretty good. So the student is outstanding. So he also did lots of other things that like the machine translation into Ukrainian and other things that we're doing. He's stepping it up. So Amazon gave us $45,000 in comp in order to use machine translation. So we can take all the textbooks, convert them into Ukrainian, and let the students that are displaced over there have access to it in there. Is it perfect machine than human translation? No, but it's 95%, 90, and that's far better than 0% of perfection. So anyways, I'm digressing, and I also stole Anna's thing here. And I think that's probably the end, unless there's something that I need to address.